Hi, my name is Selden Beylouni. I am an autoimmune and lupus healer. I'm a graduate of SBSM in 2021, and I have been doing this work ever since, and it has changed my life, and I'm here to share my story about that. I went to a million doctors, and I went to a ton of shrinks. Obviously, when I got pregnant, I stopped taking the medications, and then after I had her, I was going to go back to taking them because I had a career and now I had a baby, and I was like, how am I going to function? Because I literally I really had a hard time functioning. Like I really could barely get out of bed. My body really hurt all the time. I was incredibly heavy and my joints were always aching. And then because my body felt like that, I was going into depression and victim and what's wrong with me. And I don't understand why why I can't function like everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of stories sort of, helping to sort of push this, all the inflammation in my body, that was going on. And I will say with autoimmune, there's, like I said before, there's a lot of layers to it. It's never just like one thing. I did like everything all the autoimmune people say to do, but the trauma was like this missing link. And it was like nobody was really talking about that and nobody was really guiding me into that. And that's actually how I found Janet and I started doing energy work. My work with SBSM has really sent me home to my body again, which is like a place that I don't think I've been in since I was like 5. Yeah. So, and it's so funny because my symptoms used to scare the shit out of me. Can I cuss on here?
Of course you can. Swear all you want.
Okay. My symptoms used to scare me, and the stories I would tell myself around my symptoms, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with my body, and now I'm like, what's going on, body? Like, I go into it with that curiosity like you teach, because it is doing actually something for me,
100%.
And I realized like the trigger wasn't gluten or, like the mold or I don't know, whatever. The trigger was this emotional thing, I'm not sure of the details. I just have, my memory now to go on. And, what I have sort of accepted and what I actually love about SBSM too, I'll say, is that I don't have to know the details. And I actually think I kind of do leave it up to my body and to spirit to be like, enough, like, enough. And the details of of everything that happened or how many times it happened, things like that, are not necessary for me to heal. And it's one of the most beautiful things about this course is that, because I think with certain techniques for healing trauma, like EMDR, you talked about psychedelics on a YouTube video, which I loved, and I sent it out to a couple of friends, is that you can go too hard, too much, But with SBSM, you don't have to go into the trauma to heal it, So it's like it touches on it just enough that the body will release what you need to know. Because a little bit more did come out actually with SBSM. But again, I really think it was only what I needed, right, to heal it. And then maybe, I continue to do this work. So maybe in a year or in 2 months, another layer will come out, because I think if we try to just, like you said, like blow the whole thing open all at once, we could re-traumatize ourselves,
100%.
Yeah, so.
Well, we can re-traumatize ourselves. And excuse me, for those that, let's say, we could call it a preponderance to whatever autoimmune is,
right.
It can also reflare that because, again, the system doesn't have the capacity to digest the emotion, the memory, and then it can just shut it back down.
Yeah.
As you've learned. And I think what you said is really important, Selden, in that I know that a lot of folks don't want to enter into this work because the fear of what they might remember.
Yes.
And I also want to acknowledge that what you said about how you became a bit more spiritual, you were asking for help, like what is going on, what's wrong. That was sort of the signal to the cells in your body also
Yeah.
that, hey, I'm ready to find the next thing
Exactly.
that's going to help this. So I think that's just it's a beautiful trajectory and a very titrated
Yeah.
trajectory you just shared because, as you said, you don't need to know the details because with something that is like an early trauma, let's say age 4, whether it's sexual abuse or surgical trauma or
Yeah.
a physical injury or a near death injury that kids have, the system goes into a state of shock.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing to know. It'll shut down. And then, of course, the somatic senses are going to numb out, dissociate. And so when you mentioned that you were dissociating early,
Exactly.
it all kind of, the puzzles all,
That's
the
right.
pieces fit together, right?
Yeah, totally. It's really those exercises that you do, they're so simple, and they're so simple that in the beginning, and they're so slow that, well, for me, my experience is I wanted to fight. I wanted to flight. I wanted to leave. I was like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. And it's crazy because I had been meditating and doing breath work for like 10 years. So it's a whole
Yeah.
nother level of feeling your body because I want to say in meditation and breath work, you can leave. You can
Mm-hmm.
use it as a tool to actually leave, you know? So it's like coming back in. I was like, this isn't cool. Like, this doesn't feel good. And my heart would pound and my hands would get sweaty and I would be like, too much, you know? It's crazy. And so then I kept going. I would only be able to do 5 minutes of a lesson. But I kept going and kept going, and I would have to take long breaks. It took me like 9 months to finish the 12-week course,
Yeah.
you know?
That's pretty good, by the way.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I really appreciate what you said is that, 5 minutes was enough and
Yeah,
it sparked what your survival physiology was really feeling.
yeah,
Because, I mean, of course, one could still bypass doing my lessons, but it's pretty set up such that it's not encouraging that bypass, that
yeah,
disconnection. And so for those listening going, what? Like 5 minutes? Like that seems
yeah,
insane. Think about it this way, like when you're learning a new language or you're learning a new skill, you're not going to do the full shebang in the first moment. You're going to do a tiny bit so that your body and your brain and your motor memory remembers
yeah. And
that.
then you review, and then you do it again, and then you get, and so that's kind
Hmm.
of how I would do it. I would just like do it again, and then, I just stayed with orienting forever because I
Yeah.
was like, because then what would happen is I would fall asleep.
Mm.
And I was just out like after, and then I wake up and be like, well, I got a good nap and I don't think I got the lesson in, like my body was just shutting down. And what I think was interesting about it too is I would feel like I had gotten a workout. Like my mind, like my brain felt like it got a workout,
Hmm.
like there was something internal that felt like, whew, that was like, I really moved a needle in this. You know what I
Totally.
mean? Like it really felt significant. Yeah,
That is the rewiring of the
yeah,
neurons. You're
exactly.
growing that capacity, but then as you do more and more, that capacity is bigger. As you said, the if there is something that comes up, the time for it to shift, it shifts a lot faster.
Yeah,
And there's, I
exactly.
think, a lot of reasons for that. Your system is healthier, the capacity is there, but the mindset and the way in which you tune into it
Mm.
allows it to
Yeah.
leave so much quicker.
There's like a love and compassion that is now there.
Yeah.
Whereas before I was angry and mad at my
Yes.
body. How can you be doing this to me, body? And now it's like, thank you, body, for telling me that, what I need right now. Like, thank you for giving me this clue, and because the body is healing. It's wanting to heal.
It wants to
It
heal.
wants to heal. Fast forward, we're at about a year now, and I mean, I can have the toughest conversations with my ex-husband and not get into a fight. And I mean, like, it's the most profound thing, because like he triggers the shit out of me.
Sure.
And maybe some of you guys, some of the people that are listening can relate to this. And it might not seem like a big deal to other people, but for someone who's been in fight or flight and freeze, because my system really was jumping. I would take the stimulants to get out of freeze, and then I would be way up here in fight or flight, and then I would come down from fight or flight, and I would go down into freeze. And then in the meantime, I was drinking alcohol and drinking coffee and doing all the things. But that fighter, even when I stopped taking stimulants, my system was just and so I couldn't have these just normal conversations. It was like I was always just defensive and fight.
Yeah.
And, there was always a reaction.
A fight that needed to express.
Yeah. Yeah.
The early trauma that you shared, when that occurs to us when we're really young, and again, it's not so significant what it was, but that your system was disrupted and not safe.
Yeah.
And so fast forward into your life, you're going to look for ways to fight, to defend.
Yeah.
And so those relationships are hard to form because the triggers are coming from that old trauma. Same with the sleep. God only knows. It's like, I'm not going to go to sleep because when I did, or when I was alone in a room, this is what occurred to me. Right. Even though you can't consciously remember that.
Exactly. And it was happening at night. It did happen at night.
Exactly. Yeah. So the system is like, well, I'm not going to go to sleep because if I go to sleep, something bad could happen.
Yeah.
I'm curious, your kiddos, how has that shifted the way that you see them? And
oh my God, it's changed everything.
Can you speak a little bit to that? Because I would say that maybe the second most commonly asked question we get is, A, I've screwed up my kids. What can I do to help? Yeah. Or B, my kids have anxiety. Yeah. Can they do the course? And of course they can't because it's set for adult learning. So what have you experienced and how you relate to your little ones?
This is so important. So I, when my daughter was born, she's 9.5. I was so dysregulated. And I mean, I did things that I really wish I hadn't done.
Sure.
I did cry it out. She actually was experiencing some symptoms of things early on. I won't get into her whole story, but I just did things that I would never do now. I wasn't listening. I wasn't giving her the time and attention. The problem, I was so dysregulated that I actually couldn't just be with her.
No.
And so now I'm actually going back and reparenting, and really the fact that I have the capacity and space to be able to hold space for them has changed everything. I mean, it's really like they respond to me in a different way. They are sleeping better. They are having less anxiety. They are having less temper tantrums and all that. But I will say, it does take some time because they have also been sort of programmed that like mom might be kind of scary and like we might need to tiptoe around mom and like, and so it took time. And even now, like my son wants to protect me and protect my emotions. And so we go through this exercise that Elia taught me actually of him naming all the things that are his, and then different things that are different about me, So we're sort of separating because he did this sort of like wanting to protect me and worrying about my emotions, whereas my daughter's sort of more of the aggressive, like type, and so she was more acting out and sort of in that fight mode.
Yeah.
And but now I can sit down and say to them, what do I need to know about how you're feeling right now?
Yummy.
And that's all they want.
It's all they want.
That's all they want.
It's all they want.
I've apologized. I've just said, I'm sorry that I let you cry when you were a baby.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. And they're like, it's okay, Mom. And they don't get it fully what has taken place, but I believe that part of the reparenting can be us claiming what has happened and saying that's never going to happen again.
Yep. Well, but it's so beautiful because their memories, even if they don't remember that conversation, cognitively, their cells know that you are on their side.
Yeah.
And that's all that they need to know.
Yeah, exactly. And the behavior after that conversation shows that. Yeah, it shows.
Love it.
I wrote this. I kind of touched on it, so it might be a little bit repetitive, but I feel like it's so important, so I'm just going to say it again. I love how you wake up one day and you realize when you had a tough conversation with somebody or an interview with someone you admire or an emotional breakup or something happens that would normally have set your system off and you realize, I don't do that thing anymore. I don't fight or have anxiety or panic attacks or shut down in depression on the couch. You realize those instances get farther and farther apart. Your reactions become responses. And it's strange realization because you don't know you're healing that particular thing at the time, but all of a sudden it's just not there anymore. And it's incredible.
Well, thank you so much for doing the work, showing up.
Thank you.
Talking and sharing. Oh my gosh. You're welcome.
Class changed my life so much. Yeah.